Um, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I lived with my mom most of my life. I don't know who my real father is. Got a stepdad. He raised me, so I consider him my father. And so growing up, I really didn't know this whole deal about Jesus, this whole deal about God. I had an idea that there was a bad place. I had an idea that there was a good place. Just from cartoons. Because in cartoons, they would have the little devil pop up on the shoulder. And he would tell you to do the bad thing. And then you have like the little angel pop up, and he'd tell you to do the good thing. And that was as far as I knew. I remember this one day. I was at my friend's house. His name was Zach, and he was my best friend. And we were in his room playing some sort of Sega game or something, and someone knocked on the door. There was this really tall guy. His name was Guy. And he was door knocking that day, and he was asking people if they believed in Jesus. He asked me if I believed in Jesus, and I was like, Jesus is good, right? This is a good thing, so yeah, I believe in Jesus. Well, he began to tell me about sin. Began to tell me who Jesus actually was, what he did for us. And for the first time ever, I prayed with him right there. Well, this guy started coming to my house. And he would pick me up, and he brought me to church a few times, and he brought me to my first VBS I ever went to. This was all when I was transitioning into 6th grade. Well, he started hanging out with me a lot and started talking about this idea of baptism. And I really didn't know what it was or what it meant. My mom didn't like the idea of it. He was really pushed away by my mom. Well, through that time, I didn't have a church, didn't go to church. I just really liked this idea of it. And my mom started developing problems with alcohol and with medications and mixing the two and taking too much and drinking too much, and went through a series of boyfriends and who would move in and move out, and I hated life at home and I needed a place to go. Just turned out that I met this one girl, and she took me in, her and her family took me in, and they made sure that I would get to church every single Sunday. That family is the most influential family that has been a part of my life. And we still keep in touch, we still talk all the time. But they got me into church at the age 15. And that is when I started my church career, if you will. Age 16, I went on this trip with the youth group. And this youth group was my home. Every Wednesday night, I got there early because I drove myself, and I was probably the last one to leave because I didn't want to go home. And so I went on this trip with the youth group, this place called Winterfest up in Gatlinburg, and again, they started talking about baptism. And up to this point, I had been thinking about it for a few months, and I really wanted to get baptized, but I didn't know if there was a right time to, or when I was supposed to, or what was going to happen. But the youth minister was prepping us for the last night. And the last night is always the night of the invitation. It's always the night for those who want to rededicate themselves to Christ and to God. He gave the invitation, raise your hand if you want to be baptized and give your life to God. And I threw both my arms in the air like I had just won a race. It was a victory. We went home the next day, and I was going to get baptized. Well, I was baptized, and it was amazing. You're clean, you're renewed. The old is gone, the new has come. It's amazing. And when you come out of the baptistry, there is a line of hugs just going down the hall. And I hugged every single person in the line. And at the end of the line was my family. My dad was there. He's dressed up in a nice suit. He shook my hand, told me congratulations. My sister was there, and she hugged me. And I got to my mom, and she was crying. And I didn't know what to think. She was crying because she was disappointed in the decision I'd made to get baptized. But I didn't care. I knew that I had a new family. I knew that I had a home in Jesus, and that God is now my Heavenly Father. And it just didn't occur to me that she was disappointed. I didn't care. Well, for the next few years, she continued with her addictions, and I continued living in fear at home, and just wanted to be out all the time. Eventually, I started bringing my sister to church. It never occurred to me, hey, bring your sister to church, dummy. And so I started, and so that started going on, and she loved it just as much as I did, and it was so great. And so college is coming up. Graduating high school, got to go to college, and I'm thinking UAB, going to UAB, and my friends are going there, and I want to go be a physical therapist, and UAB is the best place for that, so I'm so excited. And I filled out my application, I was accepted, and, I got my dorm thing, I sent that in, and I was waiting on everything to come in, and my dad takes me out to lunch one day and says, Nick, the decision was you're not going to UAB your first year, but you're going to stay home and go to a community college. I was more than livid. And if you know me, I'm a talker, and I didn't talk for 2 days. So I try to look at the bright side of it. Maybe this will give me a chance to get closer to the college minister. Maybe I can help out at church somehow or whatever. And this great opportunity came along to meet with the teens, with the youth group every Thursday morning at Starbucks just for 30 minutes to have like a coffee and prayer, Devo kind of thing before school. And that was amazing, and I loved it. I love everything about youth groups. So after being able to do that for a while, the youth minister approached me and said, hey, we're in the middle of getting a new youth minister. They need some extra help. And he says, how would you like to be an intern, a youth intern? And I thought, that is an answer to prayer right there. Yes, I would love to do that. So starting in January of my freshman year of college through July of that year, I was a youth intern. That summer was also another great summer for me. I baptized my little sister. And you think, what does God do for me in my life? Hey, I baptized my little sister. And if you've ever baptized a sibling or seen a sibling be baptized and come up to be mature like she is, through a household that we grew up in, it blows your mind. I finally get the go-ahead to go to college, real college, up here at UAB, which is behind me through those windows. I went to the campus house. Jonathan was cool. He called me like once or twice before he even got here, just to say, hey, we're campus house, we're here, we do barbecues. There were people who I didn't even know that attended campus house, and they were sending me letters and writing me letters and calling me and saying, hey, come do this, come do that. And I'm just, before I even get here, I'm committed, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be cool. And they're saying, well, we go to this church, so come to this church. And I said, great, yeah, I'll go to that church and get plugged in somewhere. And I did, and everything was great. So we're going to Palisades. And if you know anything about Mayfair Church of Christ, which was my home church in Huntsville, it's huge. There are 2,000 plus members. And so making a big change from 2,000 plus members to Palisades, which is, if you get 150 on a Sunday, man, that's great, or 175. That's a good attendance. It was a shock for me, culture shock for me, big time. And, and the biggest thing that shocked me the most was there's no youth group. There's no youth ministry. Well, the next January we go to Gulf Coast Getaway. And at Gulf Coast, they talk about church. Or they talk about if there's something in church you're not happy with, then you got to be the change. And it was kind of like, duh. I had been talking about it. There had been some other leaders at the campus house talking about it. There needs to be a youth ministry. And so what happened was I went to one of the elders and was like, hey, I have a lot of experience working with youth. How can I help? I can come up here Wednesdays and just do devos and stuff and whatnot. And before you knew it, I was the youth minister at Palisades. The big part of my story that I want to leave y'all with is that it's God's story. And I was just a random kid, didn't know anything about God. one guy goes door knocking, says, hey, here's Jesus, believe in him. There's a family who's working for God, says, hey, Nick, come with us to church. And then God opens doors for me to be a youth intern, to baptize my little sister. You know, all the while I was so angry about having to stay home my first year of college, God had a plan. And he was training me for the years to come. And when I got to Birmingham, I was trained and ready to do the work that God had laid out for me. And so never, ever, ever doubt the power or the will of God in your life. If you allow him to take control, the outcome is infinite. And so I challenge each and every one of you to allow God to take control of your life so that your outcome will be infinite.